Okay, so let's see here. All right. So let's see. Yeah, happy Nurses. Is that today? Happy Nurse Day. All right. And Teacher Appreciation Week. Fantastic. All right. Let's see here. All right. So, sorry, let me wake up a little bit here. No, just sleep. Sorry. I woke up a little earlier than usual, and now I'm getting a little tired. So, just not enough sleep this past night. Yeah, I feel you. So, but anyways, we're okay. So let's see here. So on Monday, we were going over. We talked about loans, right? So let me kind of scroll up here. You're welcome. All right. So our last kind of formula here was the loan formula, which was essentially the same formula as the payout annuity. Right? It was just kind of depending on what the story was. We called it a payout annuity versus a loan, but the calculations really are one and the same. Okay, so and again here I bring up our notes here that we see here. So we have essentially 4 different formulas. We, for the most part, won't be calculating. It will probably won't be a simple interest, right? We'll most likely just strictly be dealing with a compound, some kind of compound interest, right? One thing to keep in mind is that the annuity, the payout annuity, and the loans, all of those involve compound interest. The difference between the compound interest one is that has to do with if you're saving, and the idea of compound interest in that in that type of problem, right? But all of those annuity, payout annuity, and loans, all of those do involve some type of compound interest that is accrued over time. Okay, so once we've identified, and again, always ask yourself the following questions when you ask yourself, right, when do you use this, right? You want to ask yourself, how many times is a deposit being made, right? Or is it a withdrawal? Or is it a payment, right? And that's going to tell you what formula it is, right? As you can see, right, the stories themselves, those are changed, but don't let that trip you up, right? Always ask yourself, am I paying something? Am I withdrawing something? Or am I depositing? And if I'm depositing, is it one deposit or many deposits? All right, and that's going to lead you to decide which formula you're going to use, right? And again, if you haven't already, I would highly encourage you to write those 4 formulas down, right? The compound interest, annuity, payout annuity, loans on a sheet of paper, or index cards if you have some. But since you will have your notes with you when you take your final exam, I would suggest just on one sheet of paper and write yourself notes of like when to use these, right? Write down the formulas, what all the variables mean, right? And then when to use them, right? When there's one deposit, many deposits, many withdrawals, or many payments, etc. Okay, all right. Now, what we are going to cover today, the last kind of part of this loan section, is trying to figure out how much money is left on the loan. Right now, or in other words, the remaining balance on a loan. Now, if you have like a mortgage, right, and let's say after 5-10 years you want to refinance, you want to buy a new home, right? First, you need to find out how much money is left on your loan. Now, one thing to notice is, or to realize is, if you make, let's say, for example, $1,000 payments. At the end of a year, your loan is not $12,000 less, right? Because a lot of that, especially in the beginning, goes towards interest, right? And as you do project 4, one of the questions there, it asks you to generate the table. And again, all this will be done on a calculator that you'll find online. And it'll break down how much of the payment is interest and how much actually pays down the principal. Okay, and is it, for the first several years of the loan, a lot of that is interest, and you slowly break down the principal, and eventually that overtakes, and those last payments are strictly paying, or last few years you're doing more contributions to paying down the principal. Okay, so what we're going to look at today is, well, what if 5 years, 10 years down the line, you want to refinance, right? And then the question you want to ask yourself, well, how much am I going to refinance for, right? Or in other words, how much is the remaining balance of the loan? All right, so one thing to keep in mind, it's simply, you can't just multiply payments by months. Okay, in other words, here, let me explain that. Let's say that, and I'll get to this example in a second. Let's say you have a $700,000 loan, right, on a 30-year mortgage, and you want to refinance after 10 years. All right, so it would be incorrect to take, all right, there's 10 years times 12 months per year times, let's say my payment was $4,000 a month. All right, so that would be incorrect, right? So then if you did that, you would say, all right, that means that I would just take 10 times 12 times 4,000. And then that would mean, all right, that means I paid so far 480,000. And then I would say, all right, 700 minus 400 minus 480,000. All right, and I would say, all right, then I would have $320,000 left. All right, which seems, all right, seems pretty legit, right? That's what I'm doing, but this would be an incorrect approach, right? In this approach, you are not accounting for interest. Okay. All right, so it would be nice if it was simply just this manner. We just say, all right, I paid this much, right? That's how much is left, but that is not the whole story. So we need to find a way to account for that interest that is being paid, right? So the correct approach would be to do the following. All right, so if we think of, let's say, our kind of timeline here, where we have, let's say, 0, and then let's say whatever X number of years. And let's say we consider this to be the life of the loan. All right, where the end is X number of years. If we're talking about mortgages, then we'll say most likely it'll be a 30-year mortgage, right? That seems to be standard. All right, so the way you want to approach this problem is you say, okay, let's say after a certain amount of time, right? So let's say here, whatever that time is, what I want to worry about in this case to figure out what the remaining balance is, it doesn't really matter how many years I've paid into it. What really is going to matter two things are going to matter, right? Besides knowing the interest rate, and we'll assume most likely it'll be a monthly type of payment, right? Two things that are going to be very important in this calculation are going to be the number of years left. Right? Because the way you want to think of this problem is, let's say you refinance this loan after 5 years, right? Then essentially what you want to think is, well, what if I start paying this loan as of after the 5th year, that being day one, right? And I have however many years left, right? And I want to figure out how much total am I paying on that loan, right? So essentially you've already paid off, let's say those 5 years, some of it was principal, some of it was interest, find whatever those values are. But now what I want to figure out is, including interest and my original principal, plus whatever I paid off, how much of that is left. And in order to do that, the two pieces of information that are going to be key are the number of years left on the loan, that, and also the monthly payment. Okay, if I'm not giving the monthly payment, then I can usually find it using the same loan formula, right? And we'll do an example when we're not giving the monthly payment and how to approach that, right? But let's take a look at the above example that we're asked to find here. So this says, if a mortgage at a 4.25% interest rate has payments of $2,000 a month, how much will the loan balance be 10 years from the end of the loan? All right. So we're given those two crucial pieces of information. All right. So the way I want to treat the remaining balance of the loan is, that's going to be my new P0, my new initial balance. Right. In other words, if I were to start that loan 10 years from it's going to end, how much am I going to wind up paying? All right. Okay, so excuse me. All right, so here, so as a reminder here, our loan formula is P naught. No, 2,000 is the monthly payment. I don't know what P naught is, right? $200,000 a month, right? And then I still have 10 years left on the loan. All right. So what I want to find is, if I were to start this loan, like let's say today, from today, there is 10 years left on the loan. Let's say I want to think of it, because let's say I want to refinance, right? I want to say, all right, how much is left on this loan, right? So you want to solve on the P initial, right? Remember, if you just multiply 2,000 by 10 by 12 months in every year, that includes all the payments, including interest payments, right? That's too much money, right? I'm going to refinance, so all I'm looking for is the principal that is left when I am 10 years away from paying it off. Okay, so it's not as easy as taking 2,000 multiplied by 10 and then multiplying by 12, right? That would be way too much money, right? Because that includes the interest. Okay, so be careful, right? When you do these calculations, right? Don't take the easy way out. It usually involves some kind of compound interest, so you're going to have to be using that compound interest formula. Okay, any questions before I move on that part? We're clear on the problem from there. Okay. All right, so our formula P naught is 1 minus 1 plus R over K to the negative NK over R over K. Okay, now going slow, try to go a little slower. So here, all right, I got the formula down. Okay. Okay. Negative n times k, that is from our formula. It is our loan formula. I mean, I didn't go over through the derivation of it. I just kind of skipped that kind of math. We can just, I didn't go over rigorous proof of the formula. We just stated it. So we can just take it at face value. That's the formula that we'll be using. Okay, so for this part, now let's identify the pieces of information that we know. All right, so I know that here the terms of the old loan, the rate is 4.25%. All right, the monthly payment is 2,000. K is 12. All right, and then again, P0, I don't know. Okay, and again, as a reminder, right, what we're doing is 10 years before the loan is done, and I also know N, excuse me, N is 10. All right, and again, N in this case is time left on the loan. All right, that's a very important detail, right? So make sure that you understand when you are trying to calculate the remaining balance, right? And let me write that up here, new P0. For all these remaining balance problems, N will always be time left on the loan. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right, so now I have everything here that I need to calculate this. All right, so we'll start again. The first part is plugging everything in. So we'll say, okay, here, P0 D is 2,000. R was 0.0425 all over 12 to the negative 10 times 12. Close my parentheses, all over 0.0425 over 12. Theodore, do you have a question? Oh my goodness, yeah, sorry. I think I did 1 plus. Okay. All right. Okay. And then from here, we'll take out our calculator. Again, we'll do this one step at a time here. So okay, clear that out of the way there. Okay, so let's start by plugging in the values here. So I'll start with the denominator. So we'll start with 0.0425 divided by 12. And that gives me, and again here, I'll go 4 place values, right? If you want to go more than 4, that's fine. I think, right, more than 5 or 6 is more than enough here to kind of reduce our kind of round off error. But I'll go 4 place values here. So here, and let me give myself a little more room here. So the denominator was, what was that again? 0.0035. 2000, 1 minus, and then here I'll just go ahead and do the inside those parentheses, excuse me. I'll go ahead and add 1 to this quantity, 0.0425 over 12. Notice that these are the same thing here, so it'll be 1 plus that would be 1.0035. And then negative 10 times 12 is negative 120. All right. Okay. So that leaves us right here. Excuse me. Okay, so now the next step I'm going to do here, right? Again, one step at a time, right? I don't like, we could put this all in the calculator, but a lot of times it gets kind of confusing trying to keep track of all my parentheses and whatnot. So let's just kind of work through one step at a time. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work inside the parentheses and figure out what 1 minus 1.0035 raised to the negative 120 is. Right, so I'll bring back my calculator here, and let's do 1 minus 1.0035 raised to the negative 120. And then hit enter. Okay. So again, I'll take 4 place values. So we get 0.3425. And again, remember, that's the stuff inside the parentheses, right? The 1 minus 1.0035. So we get 0.3425. Okay. Excuse me. All right, and now what I'll do here is the last thing here is plugging in that last calculation, and that one I'll just do it in one calculation. So I'll plug in here. Oops. 2,000 times 0.3425. That equals 685. Then divide that by 0.0035. Thank you. And we get 197,000. Excuse me, 95,714 with 29 cents. All right, and again, important to realize that this is the money left on the loan. Okay, now again, to kind of highlight again, when you do these problems, right, avoid the urge to just simply say, all right, there's 10 years left, 12 months for those 10 years, and $2,000 for the monthly payment. All right, if we do that, 10 times 12 times 2,000, we get $240,000. All right, and again, keep in mind, those are not the same numbers. All right, because that number in orange there is taking into account payments made towards interest. Okay, so keep that in mind. Don't do that, right? The purpose here is that we're going to refinance. So those 10 years, you're not going to be paying that same interest rate. All right. You simply want to find out what is the principal. Right. And also notice over those 10 years left, you wind up paying about $45,000 worth of interest. Yes, and that's why I think I try to do all these those calculations here one step at a time. Right, I think, and I encourage you guys to do the same, right? Just kind of break it down, right? And even the multiplication, if you notice what I did here, right? I did the denominator first, then I hit enter, then I did the numerator first, the multiplication, hit enter, and then hit division. Right, so even with, as I work through these, I always like to do the okay. All right, I like to kind of work one step at a time just to see in case the answer isn't what is supposed to be the answer. If it just doesn't make sense, I can always go back and see, all right, I can kind of retrace my steps. Okay. All right, any questions? Any other questions here on this type of problem here? All right, so let's move on here to the next one. So here it says a couple purchases a home with a $750,000 mortgage at 3.5% for 30 years with monthly payments. What will the remaining balance be on their mortgage? What will the remaining balance on their mortgage be after 5 years? Okay, now notice here that 30-year mortgage, right? What is the remaining balance after 5 years? And again, keep in mind, what is this asking? This is not asking how much have I paid in those 5 years. It says after 5 years, I want to reevaluate how much is left on my mortgage. Maybe I want to refinance, right? Maybe I found a better deal. Maybe I want to buy another home, all right? And then maybe you want to tie that into, okay, this is how much is left on the loan. How much is my loan? How much is my home actually worth at that point? Okay, so kind of keep in mind what we're trying to find, right? What we're trying to find here is the remaining balance. How much is left to pay over those next 25 years, right? Because after 5 years, there's still 25 years left till the end. Now, what is different here than the previous one, they just simply state monthly payments. So I don't know what those monthly payments are, right? And again, as I mentioned in the above here, what are the two important pieces of information to redo this calculation? The number of years left on the loan and the monthly payment. Well, I need to do this in 2 steps. Right, the first step is to calculate the monthly payments using the original mortgage information. All right. In both of these steps, I'm going to use the exact same formula, right? Still the loan formula. All right. I'm just calculating, interpreting the problem in different ways. So that would be the first step. After that, the second calculation, I would calculate P0, right? Because it's going to be different than 750,000, right? Calculate P0 when there is 25 years left on the loan. Right, so this is going to be my new n, right? And again, right, pay attention here. N is not 5, right? N is going to be how many years are left. So after 5 years on my 30-year mortgage, how many years are left? It's 30 minus 5, right? 25 years. Okay, so are we kind of clear here on the two things that need to be done in this problem? Notice that it's different from the previous one where they gave me the monthly payment, then I can just jump right away to solving for how much money is left. Here I need to do one calculation before I can get to solving. Okay, all right, so let's start with the, all right, what is it that you don't get, Melody? Well, part 2 is the same as this calculation here, right? So let's say part 1, I simply want to calculate, let's say that this was the scenario that I'm in, right? I found a home, it's 750,000. I can get a 3.5% mortgage for 30 years. So I just want to find, all right, what would be the monthly payments on it? Okay, so let's say I did that, right? I bought my home, right? Moved in, I'm doing great, right? But then 5 years later, I want to figure out, oh, how much money is left on the loan? Because maybe I want to refinance, maybe I found another home that I want to move into, right? And in order for me to do that, I need to figure out, well, how much is left on my first loan that I took out. So I need to do the calculation that I did here, where, okay, after 5 years, I want to figure out what is my balance after 5 years, right? I spent 5 years paying my mortgage, right? But again, some of those payments, so that money goes towards interest and only some of it goes to principal. So I want to determine how much of the principal is left after 5 years, right? And that is the calculation that's going to be done in part 2, right? Part 1 and part 2 are both using the same formula. We're just calculating different aspects of it. Does that make a little more sense, Melody? So let's start by figuring out if I were to be bought a house here with 750K mortgage, what would be my monthly payments on that house? All right, so here, yeah, break my work down into 2 parts here. Okay, so we're gonna, and again here for both of these, I'll just write the formula here. Okay. Okay, so here for part 1, in this case, my monthly payments are my unknowns. Right. My N is going to be 30 years. It's like I have a 30-year mortgage. My rate was, what was my rate again? 3.5%. 3.5%. All right, monthly payments, so K is 12. And then my initial was 750K. All right, so that's the setup for part 1. All right, so let's plug that in here. To negative 30 times 12. Close the parentheses, and then over here, 0.035 over 12. Okay. So now let's start again trying to perform this calculation. I'll bring my calculator up here. Hit. All right. So again, I'll start by the denominator. So we'll plug in 0.035 divided by 12. Okay. And again, here I'll go 4 decimal place values. So my denominator will be 0.0029. I haven't done anything on the left here, so that is still 750,000 K, 0.0029. And again, D1 minus, and I'll go ahead and add 1 to 0.0029. So in my parentheses, I'll get 1,029. And then negative 30 times 12 is negative 360. Okay. All right. And then as one last step here, or not last step, excuse me, as the next step is let me add what's inside the outer parentheses, 1 minus 1.0029 to the negative 360, right? So I'll bring out my calculator here. And we'll do 1 minus 1.0029 raised to the negative 360. Right. And then I'll hit enter. Okay. All right, and then from here, what was that number again? 0.6474. And then we'll be left with D. Okay, all right. Now, the next thing I want to do here is I'm going to do the division of these two numbers here. So the next thing I'm going to do here is we're going to divide those numbers. Okay, so I'll bring my calculator up and we want to divide 0.6474 divided by 0.0029. All right, so we get 750,000 equals to, what was that again? 223.2414. All right. And now as my last step here, remember my goal was to solve for D, all right? And now for the last step here is we divide both sides. All right, and bringing my calculator up here. So when I do that, this divides to 1. So on the right side, we get D. And then on the left side, 750 divided by 223.244. And we get 3,000. 359 and here I'll go 59 since we are dealing with a monthly payment. So we'll leave it at cents. Okay. Okay, so that would be our monthly payment. All right, so that solves part one, right? So let's say, all right, I bought this house, 750,000, right? It's really nice. All right, I moved in, and then 5 years down the line, I decide, well, maybe I want a nicer house, right? Maybe I want to, or maybe I want to refinance. Maybe I'm eligible for a lower interest rate. All right, that is kind of the reason why I would like to recalculate how much is left on my loan, right? Maybe I want a new house, right? And I want to figure out how much is left on my loan and how much is the house actually worth, right? So those are things to kind of consider, right? It's not simply like, all right, let me just go get a new house, right? Maybe it doesn't make sense to get one because the money you owe on your loan is more than the house might actually be worth. All right, and hopefully you're on the other end of that, right? Maybe your house is worth more than what is actually left on your loan. Okay, all right, so now we found the first part, right? So the first part is done, right? We found what our monthly payment is. So again, to recap here, this here is our monthly payment for our 30-year mortgage. Okay, so let me zoom out here. All right, so we've done that part, right? So in this case, we'll say, all right, so I've done that, and now let's look at part two, okay? So again, we've done part one, we figured out what our monthly payment is, and now I want to figure out, okay, it's been 5 years, maybe my family grew, I need to find a bigger place. Okay, so that is where I start by figuring, all right, how much do I actually have left on my mortgage? Okay, so we say, okay, so now after 5 years, I'm going to do this recalculation where I'm going to find P0, right? And again, that P0 represents how much is left on my loan. All right, so how much is left on my mortgage? All right, and again, N is not going to be 5, right? Again, think of N as always how many years until the loan ends. All right, and this it's no longer 30, it's not 5, right? 5 is where I reevaluate, and after 5 years, there are 25 left. Okay. And then for the calculation, the R will be the same. And then K is 12, right? Our monthly payments. Okay. Any kind of questions at this point? Okay, so now let's go ahead and plug into our formula. So P0 is my unknown. D is 3,359 with 59 cents. 1 minus 1 plus R, which is 0.035 over 12, and then negative 25. All right. Okay. Okay, so we plugged it into our formula, and now again, step by step, we'll start simplifying this. All right, now again, here I already did the 0.035 divided by 12, right? So I don't have to bring my calculator up for that one. So that part remains the same, right? The R over K. So that part remains the same, the R over K. The exponent here is going to be different, right? Because it's no longer 30. It is 25 times 12, and what is that? 300. 300. Okay. All right. And now we'll start, I'll work inside the parentheses. I'll do this 1 minus 1.0029 to the 300th power. So let me bring that up here. And we get 1 minus 1.0029 raised to the negative 300. All right, and then I'll hit enter. And we get in the parentheses, we're going to get the number again, 0.5805. Okay. And then from here, I'll perform this operation, right? I'll multiply the numerator. So 3359 0.58 and enter, and then divide by 0.0029. Okay, so after 5 years of paying this, we are left with $672,497 and roughly 24 cents. And again, as a reminder, what did we just calculate? This is the amount left on the loan after 5 years. Or 25 years from the end of the loan. All right, any questions on this example? Okay, I think we are, there's no questions. I think we're done for today.